Alright, we are back again. Alright, we are back again. This is Any Given Sunday with Rob Leano on Camp Student Radio. Well, this is, the first show of 2016. I'm really looking forward to it. And, it's really funny. Earlier this week, I was wondering to myself, oh God, is this going to be a show where I have nothing to talk about? Because going through the week, I'm like, there's nothing, there's no news. There's some basic news that almost no one would care about, or there's just, stuff that's happened where it's only good for that day and nothing else. But then, almost the very next day after I said that, I got this whole thing of news on my headlines list, and just wow, I have a lot of things to talk about now. So, putting it that way is, well, now we have a lot of things to talk about, and let's just get started. So, what I have first to talk about is I like to call it the rant of the week, but there's also the highlight of the week. I either switch between one, whether I'm talking negatively or positively about something. I'm going to combine this. It's going to be both positive and negative, a highlight and a rant. So it's going to have two parts to it. The first part's going to be a highlight, and the second part's going to be a little bit of a rant. So with that said, let's pretty much get to this highlight part of it. So earlier through last week, the Buffalo Bills announced that Kathryn Smith would be the first full-time coaching position in the NFL. She was hired as the special teams quality control coach. Now, this is huge. Like I said, this is the first female to get a full-time coaching position in the NFL, and everyone's saying how amazing this is, how we're going from the idea that football is a man's only sport to something where there's really no gender defined to it. I mean, yeah, it still is a male dominated sport, but we still got this moving in now, which I think is fantastic. So, with Kathryn Smith, the new assistant coach in the NFL, and for the Buffalo Bills, let's see what her history is with sports. I looked it up a little bit to see what I could find on her, and this is what I found. So, she graduated from St. John's University in New York in 2007 with a degree in sports management. And during her time there at St. John's, she was a team manager, and she was hired as an intern for the New York Jets. She interned there all 4 years in school, and she later got hired to become a scouting assistant, and then later the player personnel assistant. She was under Rex Ryan for the longest time with the Jets, and when Rex Ryan got fired by the Jets and then subsequently hired by the Bills, she followed him over to the Bills and continued to work for him. And so she continued to be the personnel assistant for Rex Ryan until the day she got hired as the special teams quality control. So, everyone's saying this is huge, and I think this is fantastic. But going into the rant part, there's some people who disagree with this. And in just literally one day after this news was made, a Cleveland radio show host, some Cleveland radio show host, his name Kevin Kiley, he totally thought this was like a dumb idea, and I have a few quotations from him to talk like of what he actually said. So he pretty much said, quote, "No place for women in professional sports. Football, coaching men. Men will not take it into it. If you have 10 men on special teams, 8 of them will be mumbling under their breath. It is counterproductive. You're setting her up to fail." Now, I think that's a pretty harsh thing to say to him. Like what he's saying is, I don't think what he's saying is right. Oh, of course, there is a place for women in professional sports. I mean, like, you have, of course, women's sports, and like, women, a lot of women are getting into sports now, so, like, what's the big deal? In football, back in near my hometown in Mountain View, one of the high schools had a woman as the kicker. So it's not that big of a deal to have women in sports or in football. And coaching, well, I mean, I don't see a big deal. If they played, if they actually know the game, then what's the big deal? Like, I don't see a big deal. I don't see why he's making a big deal out of it. I don't really see much into it. But then he went on. And he somehow turned his rant into talking more about the Hall of Fame. So, going on, he said, quote, "This is the old conversation we had about women vote for the Hall of Fame in football. It's absurd. I mean, do you really want your determination on whether to make the Hall of Fame in football? Do you want a woman to have a vote who's never played the game and understand the intensity of the game?" Wait a minute. What? Did you really just say that? Women they don't really have to understand the intensity of the game to vote. If they know the game, so this is the thing is, what I think Kevin Kiley's assuming is he's assuming that we still live in a life in which men sit on their couches, watch football for 7 hours on a Sunday, and just tell their wives or whatever to grab them a beer or grab them a drink or anything, because they're not into the game, they're not watching. But we're living in a whole different era now. We now live in the era, like I said earlier, women are fans of sports. Women are taking part in sports, even football too. So I don't see what he's saying. It doesn't make any sense to me. Because you have a lot of these things now. I mean, because not only do we have women in woman, like, not only do we have her have Kathryn Smith now as one of the coaches, but we're also seeing women going into officiating. And like I said earlier, there's some that are trying to actually play the game. So you're being a little, it's kind of like contradicting yourself already, because you're saying, number one, there's no place for women in sports, and then you go on to say, then they can't vote because they don't understand the intensity. Well, then why don't you let them play? Why don't you let them coach so they do understand the intensity of the game? Because, I mean, if that's your statement, then what's the big deal about letting a woman in the game? Like, I don't really see it. But that is what it is for what he says. I can't change what he's gonna think, but still, Kathryn Smith getting hired as to be the first full-time coach, get a full-time coaching position, with the Bills in the NFL is fantastic, and I hope the best for her. Hope she can work her way up, prove a lot of those guys out there who are doubting women in general in professional sports, and just go out there and have the passion for the game, just as anybody else. That's all that matters. Is having the passion for the game, knowing the game. That's really all that matters in the end. We see that a lot. We see some guys are some guys don't have the passion for the game anymore, and they'd stop playing well, and they no longer want to play. And the thing about Kevin Kiley saying that she's not qualified for and over what a man would be, that's still technically not right, because it's just not right in general. Because really, I can't really say, because I've never been a coach or never been in that head coach position or within the front office of a sports team. But my assumption would be that if I had two applicants hiring for a coach, one applicant was a male, and he's got no experience in football or in sports. He never played in high school, never played in college. Doesn't understand the game at all. Or we have a woman who's a team manager who has actually a degree in sports management and understands the game. Like, you can ask her anything about the game, and she actually knows what everything we're saying. I'm definitely going for the woman with that resume than the man who doesn't have any experience, because that's just it makes sense. So that's where we go for the qualifications thing. Is like, obviously you should be more qualified than the man who doesn't have experience, or even a little bit less experience. I mean, I don't see like that. This is like the world we live in now. If like it's gender, like the difference in gender when it comes to hiring for anything is absurd to me. We have that everywhere. It's still upsetting that we see that even in the tech world where you have the majority men, where very little women are high up in the executive boards. And now that we're seeing a shift, I mean, it's of course it's not going to be happening that much, and it's probably going to happen very, very slowly, but it's actually happening. We're seeing women actually get the equality that they need in the job force, in the workforce, especially with professional sports. I think that's fantastic. All right, let's just move on from that. Let's talk a little bit about the conference championships today. Starting at around 1:30 time here in Arizona, or 2:30, I think. We have the we have the conference championship starting, and I think it's exciting. We got more football, but it's almost done. So who knows what's going to happen after we're done with football? But let's move. Let's go for the. Let's talk about this first game. So we got Denver versus New England. So New England is traveling to Mile High at Sports Authority Field to face Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. Normally I would say this is actually a really difficult one, because going up in elevation to face one of the greatest quarterbacks, a really great quarterback, and expect to win. That's a difficult thing to think. But there is this huge but here. Tom Brady is on the other team. And his offense is really, really healthy. So that's a huge thing to talk about. You have the coming back of Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola, and we saw really quick recoveries from the end of the regular season of Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. And there's a lot more, really, is that New England, they quickly turned from, they were, with the questionable injuries, they were no more than a questionable team. You're like, can they make the playoffs? Can they win? And we saw that once they became healthy last week and they played Kansas City. Kansas City put up a fight, but New England looked strong again. Because Tom Brady had his threats everywhere he needed. He just kept going, and that's where we needed him. I think that's fantastic. And despite, Denver having the home field advantage, then the Patriots, they're looking to come in strong. They're going to prove themselves, and I think this is going to be a fantastic showing. And let me bring up. So, for those of you who don't know, I do post my my previews on a blog. I do go a little more in depth on my blog on robertleano.com if you want to check that out. But so what I'm saying is, so the Denver Broncos, I'm going to take this straight from what I wrote, is the Denver Broncos, they've been facing struggles lately too. And I'm seeing, in terms of the quarterback position, that's one of the things, is I'm seeing a very similar situation between, we already know Peyton Manning's going to start, but I still saw that very similar situation between Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler this year, and Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick a few years ago. With the young, momentous quarterback coming in really strong, who started because their really good starting quarterback got injured. So, I really thought in the beginning, Gary Kubiak, from the head coach of the Broncos, still should have kept Brock Osweiler in, because he had a lot of momentum going into the playoffs. He just kept winning the games, and he played really well for that. We can definitely say he's not an elite quarterback. That's what we would say, but he played well. So we're seeing that. But I would have expected him to play last week against the Steelers. Maybe they would have played better then. I don't know. They struggled a little bit against the Steelers when they did start Peyton Manning, and they're expecting to start Peyton Manning this week. And that's the difference. Is a few years ago when they started Kaepernick over Alex Smith going into the playoffs, because Kaepernick had a lot of momentum, and took him to the Super Bowl. I believe that would have been the same situation if Brock Osweiler stayed in. But they're starting Peyton Manning most likely. So that's what makes a huge change in what we're seeing in this game. It's going to be. I still think that the Broncos are going to put up a fight against the Patriots, but the Patriots will still have the edge. And I said that my prediction on that would end up being 38-32 in the Patriots' favor, so they would advance to Super Bowl 50 and go to Santa Clara at Levi Stadium. Alright, and the next game, which is the Carolina Panthers versus the Arizona Cardinals. Now, these are two very offensive teams. We have the danger of Cam Newton's offense versus Carson Palmer's. We have Cam Newton, who during the season threw for just shy of 4,000 passing yards. And their top three quarterbacks, running backs for that matter, plus Cam Newton, had 2,000 rushing yards combined. And so we see that's a strong offense there in Carolina. They're going to do well. But Arizona, first overall in total offense according to NFL.com, averaging 408 yards per game. And they are fifth in total defense, allowing only less than 321.7 yards per game. That is huge. You have one of the best offenses. You have the best offense in terms of yards, and one of the best defenses in terms of yards on the same. That's the same team, Arizona Cardinals. They're a really good team. And Carson Palmer, last week, against the Packers, well, he went 25 for 41, 349 yards, 3 touchdowns. He played really well there. If you guys didn't see that game, go watch the highlights. I did that. I actually missed that game. I was pretty upset, and after I watched the highlights, that I missed it. It was huge. It was just so crazy. Green Bay was so close to coming back, but Carson Palmer, he settled it and he won the game. With Larry Fitzgerald too, him on the wide receiver end, that totally helps. He's definitely a very athletic wide receiver out there, and he's definitely a threat to Carolina, whose defense they're good, but they're still not in the top 5 like Arizona's is. But here's where we get a but. Arizona, I would say normally, would be the favorite to win this game. Based off of how they've been playing, not by record, because by record, of course, I would say, easily Carolina, they only got 1 loss. But Arizona has that better edge. Now, this game is being played in Charlotte. And for those of you guys who do not know, the entire East Coast in the United States is being pounded by Winter Storm Yoenis. Lots of blizzards, lots of storm. It's closures of transportation, the bus system closing in New York. Everything is shutting down. Because it's just, the weather is just crazy over there on the East Coast. That includes Charlotte, where the Carolina plays. So, there's a huge factor. Can the Arizona Cardinals play in such intense weather? Now, I'm not saying Carolina is used to it, but they live on the East Coast. They're used to the cooler weather, Sometimes they may get a little more intense weather than Arizona, because, well, Arizona is a very sunny state. There's not much to come out of that. I mean, yeah, there's just lots and lots of sun over there in Glendale. Yeah, I mean, so with that said, Carolina having the home field advantage and Arizona going in not having much experience in intense weather of like what we're having right now on the East Coast, well, it's going to be a close fight, but I'm going to have to give this one to Carolina. I said this one would be 42-35. Carolina wins, advances to Super Bowl 50. Just like that. Alright, so that's it for the NFL. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit of NBA, MLB, and even a little NHL. We'll be back. Alright, welcome back. Any Given Sunday with Rob Leano. Alright, so let's move on to our next topic. We're going to talk about a little bit the NBA, and to those who have been listening before from last semester, no, I'm not talking about the Warriors this time. This time, I'm talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Yeah, so what happened is the Cleveland Cavaliers fired their head coach, David Blatt. Now, before he was fired, Cleveland was 30-11. Number 1 in the Eastern Conference and 3rd in the NBA. Not only that, Blatt also had his overall record of the Cavs the last couple of years is 83-40 with a 67.5% winning percentage, the highest in Cavs history. So, why'd they fire him? Why would they fire such a great coach? He's doing well everywhere, right? Well, reports are saying that he did not receive much respect from players. Okay, well, yeah, you could do that, but you're still playing really well. And now you just fire him in the middle of the season for that, though? Usually you would fire someone in the middle of the season for just playing extremely poorly. Like, if they didn't have any wins by now, then yeah, I would definitely fire the head coach. But with having a 30-11 record, 83-40 all time during his career, but still not having respect from much players, I don't think that is a reason to fire in the middle of the season. Now, obviously, fans were really upset when the new head coach, Tyronn Lue, had his debut against the Bulls last night. Fans booed him because, the Cavs lost that game, and the Cavs fans just booed him, so much. And, well, they do have the right to do that. I could see why they're pretty upset. They have a new head coach who just lost his first game on his debut, and he's supposed to be replacing someone who's, well, someone who's better. Someone who's one of the greatest coaches. I don't see the. I don't see what's going on. This whole firing thing is beyond me. I don't understand why. I still don't understand why they did it. And it's really unfortunate for Blatt. He had something really great going for him with the Cavs, and for him to be fired there is it's unfortunate for him. But still, is that now that he's fired, there are a few teams taking interest in him. Now there's so 3 teams mostly: the Nets, the Wolves, and the Lakers. Now, if I were David Blatt, the team that would look most appealing to me, and this is gonna be out of normally what I would say, because, well, I wouldn't say this normally, but it makes sense. The team that would be most appealing to me if I were David Blatt would be the Los Angeles Lakers. They'd be the most viable choice. It would make sense. But why? So the thing is, David Blatt was hired by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first place to coach young players, specifically a player like, Kyrie Irving, and turn them into all-stars. He definitely did that at the Cavs. Kyrie Irving, he's a good player with the Cavs, and now that the whole the Cavs thing is changing, there's a little bit of a difference now that we're seeing in that case. So now you're supposed to be really good because you have you looking at if I were looking at the Lakers, I'd be like, all right, they've got young players. They've got Julius Randle. They got D'Angelo Russell. And not only that, is they're looking to get a lottery pick for in the NBA draft. Definitely a good lottery pick. So they can get some more young players. And if the Lakers were to hire Blatt, that would definitely help develop the team and turn the Lakers into what we see as a mediocre team, or less than mediocre team for that matter, to actually a good team. We haven't seen that in a while, and even more so now that Kobe is going to be leaving the team. So that's going to be even more of a reason to hire him because, a lot more young talent on that team. So I would say Lakers, get on that. Alright. That's all I have to say for the NBA. Really. And so from that then, let me move on to the MLB. So, it's the MLB offseason right now. We're having lots of free agent pickups. And when I mean lots of them, I mean lots of them. And over the last couple of months, there was this big thing where, the Mets made it to the World Series and they lost to the Kansas City Royals. One of their players on the Mets that really helped them, Yoenis Cespedes. Now, the thing is, after the World Series and going into the offseason, there was question whether or not Yoenis was going to come back on the Mets. And, the thing is, they never came to a contract with him. So in essence, he became a free agent for a few months. From November to January, this month, he was a free agent. And finally, just yesterday or Friday, I believe, he finally came to a deal with the New York Mets. Now this deal, 3-year contract, worth $75 million. Now, this is huge for them. If the Mets want to look to come back and win the World Series and actually have a chance at winning, signing Yoenis was the best thing they could do to that team. And now they're probably going to try to look to do the same thing the Royals did, is come back. So the Royals came back last season to win the World Series after the previous season losing in Game 7 to the San Francisco Giants. Now the Mets want to do the same thing. They want to come back. Although they did lose Daniel Murphy, we did talk about that. They lost Daniel Murphy, but they're still going to try to come back. They're going to in having Yoenis come back, they're still definitely back on the NL radar, and they're going to be extremely competitive in the league in the NL, which that's a really competitive league. This league consists of they've got the Chicago Cubs, they've got the San Francisco Giants, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Washington Nationals, who just recently picked up Daniel Murphy. Now that's going to be a really difficult job for for the Mets, having Yoenis definitely really helps them. But when you have someone like the Cubs who, they're making changes around their organization. They're keeping their manager Joe Maddon. I am not entirely sure because I haven't really checked lately, but I believe they're keeping Jake Arrieta and some of their other star pitching core. And really, the Cubs are just going to be. They're going to be competitive this year. I can totally see it. They're going to be competitive the next couple of years because they got lots of young talent on their team. A really great general manager, and they're going to be developed so much. Eventually they'll win a World Series. I sure hope so because it's been 106 years, 107, 108 years. I lost count since they lost. And then they go against the team that I follow so much also. They got to compete with the San Francisco Giants, my team, who picked up. They lost quite a bit. We're not really sure about Tim Lincecum or Ryan Vogelsong. We're not sure if they're staying. Most likely not. And we got guys like. So they got Samaja, who joined the team. I was A-star pitcher. And then they got Johnny Cueto, another pitcher. They're from what they lost good pitchers. And in return, they brought in great pitchers. So these San Francisco Giants are going to be one of the greatest teams this season. In my opinion, I really think that's going to happen. I sure hope so. And then, of course, the Diamondbacks, who picked up, who went on the huge deal to sign Zach Greinke from off of who was a free agent coming out of leaving the Dodgers, and that was a few months ago. And then the Nationals picked up Daniel Murphy. So we got a really good NL. So for Yoenis and the Mets, yes, we're still talking about Yoenis and the Mets, to go against these teams, it's going to be difficult still. Don't get me wrong. But having signed Yoenis, the Mets are finally back on that list of competitive NL teams. Alright. Let's move on. Going a little fast here, so we'll see what I can do from there. But in moving on, Chicago Blackhawks, Patrick Kane, historic season. So right now, the Blackhawks are on a 12-game winning streak. And most of that work is under Patrick Kane. Now, Patrick Kane, he leads the NHL right now in 71 points. We're with 71 points. And that's in 49 games right now. And according to a report done by ESPN, Patrick Kane is on pace to score 118 points by the end of the season. And with that said, he would be the first U.S.-born player since 1993 to score more than 100 points in a single season for one team based in the U.S. That's a huge feat for Patrick Kane. And there's questions going around on whether or not this guy is going to be better than Wayne Gretzky was. Now, if those questions are coming up, that's a huge deal. And really, I think that's something we got to look at, because I mean, if Patrick Kane's doing this well right now, I mean, that question should be on the plate. I really think so, and you know, that's huge for Patrick Kane, huge for the Blackhawks. And here's another interesting thing. So I said that he'd be the first U.S.-born player since 1993 to do that. Well, who was that last player in 1993 who did that? That was Jeremy Roenick. That was when he scored 107 points, also for the Blackhawks. So there's an interesting correlation we see there. Blackhawks, God, they're just playing well. They're definitely the team to beat in the Western Conference. That's no doubt. They are a threat. That's for sure. And it's gonna be hard to go around them. They're definitely gonna be favorites going into the Stanley Cup playoffs. We do have a couple months until then, so let's wait and see. But right now, they look to be competitors, like these strong competitors in the league. Well, let's take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about different things. It's going to be a little bit mixed up this time, but we are going to talk about we are going to find other things to talk about. So we'll be back. All right, back from a very short break. So, what we got next to talk about? We're gonna move back to the NFL a little bit, because this is a little bit of a fresh article, more of like just something just came out recently. So, we already heard from a couple weeks ago that the Rams are moving to Los Angeles. And that's effective immediately. They're now the Los Angeles Rams. The NFL gave the San Diego Chargers the option at that time. The option's still open. The San Diego Chargers can choose that they want to move to LA with the Rams. Alright, that'd be interesting, having two teams in Los Angeles. That'd be pretty cool. Now, there are reports saying that if San Diego chooses to move to LA, that will bring up an option for the NFL to try to push for the Oakland Raiders to move to San Diego. Now, that's something interesting to hear about. And so that's the interesting thing is we've heard that during that time with the Rams moving to LA and the Chargers having the option, the Raiders still wanted they still filed for relocation to Los Angeles also. But once the verdict came out that it would just be definitely the Rams and possibly the Chargers, with the Raiders not even in question, well, the Raiders pulled their file for relocation out, and they're no longer. Right now, they have nowhere to go except staying in Oakland. But then later on last week, there's still reports that maybe not. They might go to San Antonio. That was still questionable because San Antonio is we don't really know much about that. But for the option to go to San Diego, it actually makes somewhat of sense. See, the Chargers they're definitely considering moving to Los Angeles. And I think that's going to be inevitable eventually, because the Chargers market they're being somewhat lost with San Diego. So for San Diego to move to Los Angeles, that would be huge for that'd be huge for the Chargers. For them to having them in Los Angeles instead of San Diego will be huge. Now, here's where the bigger part gets. Now, if that were to happen and the Raiders actually did move to San Diego, that definitely open up a bigger market for the Raiders. Now, here's why. The Oakland, it's a big city, but where it is in the San Francisco Bay Area is really it's not a place to have a huge market team. And if you want a team that can make money, especially for the NFL, because the NFL wants to make money. If you want a team that does that, well, Oakland is really not the place. And that comes especially for the fact that down near San Jose, over in Santa Clara, you got the San Francisco 49ers. A huge market over there, because they've got San Jose and almost every city going up the peninsula and into San Francisco. That's literally more than half the population of the Bay Area right there. The 49ers captured that market. Now, Oakland, the Raiders have a small market in that area. So it would open up so much more opportunities for the Raiders to move down to San Diego, and that would make sense. And there's the thing is, so I can definitely see San Diego much more of a chance for the Raiders than San Antonio. Because, well, we know the Raiders, they're a California team. In heart, they are a California team. Because like I said earlier, at one time they were the Los Angeles Raiders. And they moved back to Oakland Raiders. So it would be in it would be in favor of both the NFL and the Raiders to actually choose to move to San Diego. Now, there's the interest. Like, you have that interesting idea that would if that were to happen, then Qualcomm Stadium would be staying open. Maybe then the Raiders might try to renovate it, or maybe get a new stadium other than Qualcomm, because, well, Qualcomm is an old stadium, and it is the reason why San Diego wants to leave in the first place. But, like I said, San Diego is still better than Oakland. Now, Oakland, them being in a small market, like I said, they don't have much money right now. So the relocation is definitely a hard thing to do for them. But of course they want to do it, and they're going to do it eventually. That we know that is inevitable. Who knows if it's going to be this year? I don't know. Maybe next year, but they're definitely going to relocate. Who knows? They could eventually get Los Angeles, but that's highly unlikely. San Diego is definitely a hard choice there, and San Antonio is also somewhere in there. So that's the thing right now. But so the Davis, the owner of the Mark Davis, the owner of the Oakland Raiders, when he pulled his file for relocation, we're seeing that right now it almost seems that they don't want to move anymore, and they're going to stay in Oakland. But Roger Goodell is pushing them, say, hey, that Coliseum, yeah, it kind of sucks. You want to move somewhere. We want you to move. That's almost what he's saying. He's like, just try something, because that stadium, it's not up to par with NFL standards anymore. He tried to push us, like, maybe try to make a deal with the 49ers, see if you can move into Levi Stadium. That's not going to happen. I can tell you that. That's probably one of the last things that's going to happen. No way are the Niners and the Raiders going to be sharing Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. No, I do not see that happening. Nor would I wish for that to happen. I don't want that. I don't want that to happen. So, for Roger Goodell to be pushing the Raiders out of Oakland, it's like I said, that's what makes it inevitable. Is unless the Raiders can say, all right, we're gonna move move to this stadium temporarily, and we're gonna build a new stadium in place of the Coliseum. Yeah, we know the Coliseum sucks, so we'll make a new stadium. Roger Goodell didn't really like the idea, because it's the idea of the market that stadium will be in. Like I said, because Oakland is not a good market to have a football team in. There is that, and that's my 2 cents on that. Really, I think that a move for the Raiders will be huge. San Diego, probably the best option for them. As what this new report is saying, I definitely think that's a good option for them. And, well, this is about all the time that we have for Any Given Sunday with Rob Leano. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week when we have a lot more to talk about.